In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer and Sanctifier. Amen. It is January 1993. The Central Coast is cut off to the north and to the south by fires. We are living at Wyoming, just next door to Gosford, and our home faces across a valley to Mangrove Mountain, where, as night falls and the electricity fails, we can see the red glow of fire coming down the mountainside. Blackened leaves have been falling in our yard all afternoon. We'd plugged the gutters with tennis balls and filled the gutters with water. Sleep was hard to come by that night. No air conditioning, smoke heavy in the air, a battery transistor radio playing softly beside the bed. Andrew Ollie had taken the late night emergency broadcast shift, his mellifluous voice a soothing, reassuring presence in the darkness. People are calling in, reporting the progress of the fires. This is a time before social media and the omnipresence of mobile phones. Old school payphones and crackly landlines join our hearts across the fire front. Everyone speaks from a place of shock, fear, of concern. And then there comes the caller. "I know what's caused this conflagration," he confidently asserts. Andrew Ollie, sensing the scoop of the year, asks for more information. "This is God's judgment," the caller announces, "on the gays." The caller is cut off mid-tirade, and Andrew Ollie leaves his late-night listeners in no doubt about what he thinks about such blatant bigotry. But the words hang in the darkness, and I am filled with rage. How dare that caller? How very dare he? How dare that caller presume that the God of love judges against beloved and innocent children of God? I lie there and I seethe. The damage is done, though, and I wonder how many others believe such horrible hatred. Morning dawns, the fires are dying down, we go to church to worship, but I am still angry. How dare that caller respond to suffering with unjustified accusation? I remember nothing of worship that morning, except sweeping ash from the pews beforehand and setting up afterwards in case the building was needed as an evacuation centre. Just as the fires died down around us, a fire was kindled within me. How very dare he? This reaction, both of the caller and mine, is nothing new. People have scapegoated the vulnerable, the perceived other, throughout all history. We see it now in Ukraine. We heard it around the floods. We don't need to scratch the surface deeply to find prejudice and finger-pointing at play. Then there are those who chase the adrenaline of disaster junkies who find their thrill with the suffering of others. There will be many who remember those people from the Newcastle earthquake or the Pashabolka flood. Jesus encounters some in today's gospel. At that very time, there were some present who told him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. Jesus' response, "Do you think that because those Galileans suffered in this way, they were worse sinners than all other Galileans, tells us something of what was said to him by this group. Looking to trap Jesus, their response is not to the suffering, but to blame game a cause. Did this happen to them because they were sinners? Is this some vengeful, wrathful, smiting God at work? James Allison, in his book on being liked, writes of this. There is something apparently callous about this. We react to bad news as to a form of emotional blackmail, obliging us to feel for the victims and be outraged by someone who doesn't appear to feel. But not Jesus. His attention is entirely concentrated on his interlocutors. It is not the events themselves which concern him, but their reaction to the events, and what their reaction says about whose power they are in. We can imagine the excitement of those telling him, wanting a pronouncement of appropriately apocalyptic tenor. The Galileans were not sacrificing at Jerusalem, probably at Gerizim. Maybe this was their punishment from God. But they are disappointed. Jesus completely desacralizes the event, removing any link between God and what has happened, any link between morality and what has happened. If we are caught up in thinking like that, then we too are likely to act in ways moved by the apocalyptic other, the God of blood and sacrifice and murder, of morality linked to worldly outcome, and we will perish like them. To ram home his point, Jesus chooses an example where there was no obvious moral agency, no wicked Pilate, no sacrifices of dubious validity, the collapse of a tower, maybe an architectural flaw, maybe a small earth tremor, the shifting of an underground stream. Who knows? Once again, Jesus completely desacralizes the incident. It has nothing to do with God. But if we are caught up in the world of giving sacred meanings, then we will be caught up in the world of reciprocal violence, of good and bad measured over against other people, and we will likewise perish. James Allison concludes, once again I stress, Jesus will not be drawn into adding to meaning. He merely asks those who come to him themselves to move out of the world of sacred seeming meaning. What does it mean for us to learn to look at the world through those eyes? Did the people of the North Coast deserve to be flooded? What sin had the people of Ukraine committed to be subjected to the terror of a tyrant? Worse still, when someone is vilified and attacked for being their true self, there is nothing godly or holy in that. Punishment for a crime is right. But sexuality, race, gender, identity, none of those are sins. None of those are crimes. To assert that someone or ourselves is ill or suffering or being punished for any or more of these is hate speech. Worse still, we often turn this sort of thinking on ourselves and say, I must have done something to deserve this. And when we turn it on ourselves or others, we lose sight that each of us is made in the image of God. That's a confronting thought, to accept that we, you, me, in all our diversity and difference, our quirkiness and quixoticness, bear the image of the one who created the heavens. Ponder for a moment what it means for us, what it really means to accept that all of us, every single one of us, together offer us in all our prismatic refracted light a glimpse of the image of the glory of God. It's a big thought. It's a really big thought. It might seem overwhelming, too big for 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. But ponder for a moment that if that thought is true, and it is, then how does this change the way we relate to each other? How does it change our questions? Most importantly, how does it change our listening and our response? One of my favourite invitations to communion comes from the Byzantine Rite, holy things for holy people. The Reverend Emily Scott wrote about this phrase. The phrase used to bother me a little bit because it sounded so prissy. Holy people, as if we were better, more pure, more chaste than everyone outside the temple, as if we were set apart. Recently I learned that holy is from the Old English word halig, which simply means whole. Whole things for whole people. Perhaps that changes everything, that the Church might be less about setting certain things apart as holy and more about marking what is rare, what is beautiful, what is lovely as whole. We come and stretch forward in all our brokenness and vulnerability to receive from what is broken and to be made whole. All of us, welcome, holy, beloved, and made in the image of God. Amen.